Hello, my friends. Just going live here to have our conversation about sober curiosity with my sister, Tasha. So we're just going to leave some time for people to hop on, and then once she hops on, we will invite her on and have a conversation. I'm really excited for this conversation. I feel like it's one that is a newer tangent to the conversation around like mental health and addiction. And we're just going to have a candid, real conversation. I waved to you, Tasha, instead of inviting you on.
It was like, okay, cute.
I'm like, hi.
It's like, hey, I see you.
Wrong button.
It's okay. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh my gosh. Good. I'm glad we're starting with giggles.
Yeah.
I feel like
I'm
this
like,
this conversation is going to be like, I think, unexpected. There's going to be like
hmm
unexpected elements to
Yeah, I
it
feel
that
it.
people don't normally associate to sobriety or addiction, or and that's the point. That's
hmm
why we wanted to have this conversation. So welcome,
Yeah.
Tasha.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really great to be here. I traveled far
Okay.
and wide. It was a really long haul to get here, but like I'm here. You know,
Quarantine lives.
quarantine.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Well, okay. So for those of you who are new to my channel, my name is Crystal Brandt. I am an ease mentor. I help go-getter women to slow the fuck down and to find sustainable self-care practices rooted in their core values so that they can actually engage with self-care that actually nourishes them, not just what like Cosmo magazine says or, the online articles on Instagram. It's about so much more than that. And so with these times that we're in, this conversation, Tasha and I talk every day. This is my blood sister. We're part of the same family, not just like soul sister, but blood sister.
yeah. It's good
Just to be clear,
information. Yeah.
to be clear, you might notice similarities. Most people do.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole intention behind this conversation, particularly, is the timing, right? We're
hmm
amidst a global reset with the coronavirus making its way around the planet. We're noticing that there are a lot. It's like when the busy is taken away, everything that we've been rushing past in our inner lives is now making its way to the surface kind of
hmm
effortlessly. And it's also been a lot for people, of course. It's like one thing to go into your inner life at all, but let alone when the entire collective is doing it too. Like,
Bonkers.
whoa, like who would
Yeah.
have ever seen this coming? It's crazy. So, one of the coping mechanisms that, of course, we're all familiar with is, substances and addiction and just tools that we use to not feel. So, excuse me, right into the microphone, sorry. Tickle.
It's fine. I'll do the same thing. It's fine.
Everybody, drink
So
break.
everyone can just hear our gulps.
So attractive. Oh my God. Why
Just
did you
having a
want to
moment.
have this? Why did you want to have this conversation, Sasha?
Yeah, I wanted to have this conversation because there is such time to turn in. And I know that if I didn't know that sober curiosity was a thing, it would be a really confusing time for me because I didn't know that sober curiosity was even an option. So during this time, I'm diving deep every single day and exploring so much, and it's like it's a lot, yes. And I wouldn't trade it for anything because I'm feeling all of the things for the first time in my life, like truly, without any substances, without any. I mean, there's like I think what is healthy avoidance now. It's not a numbing,
Yeah.
um, but there are a lot more healthy options for me now without alcohol or like drug related stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Which I appreciate your willingness to share your story right now. I've been able to witness you along the
Oh,
way, and
yeah.
it's
Oh, God. You've seen it
just
all.
But it's been like incredible to watch your transformation in relatively a short amount of time.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I want, especially if we're in a season collectively where everybody is feeling so much, and if they also have, you know, tendencies to reach for alcohol or to reach for substances or to reach for food, you know, whatever the thing is, like for them to know that there's another option.
Mm-hmm.
The timeliness of this conversation just feels so relevant. And
Yeah.
if anybody watching, this is our number one intention with this conversation is to just open up another door that you might
Mm-hmm.
not have known was there. And especially in the timing of everything, this could be like the perfect time to have this exploration within yourself to try it on for size. So
It's
that's
almost
our
like a
main intention.
softer, yeah, like a softer time too, where like you're not around people, so there's not a lot of the social coping mechanisms or like, you know,
Right.
forcing anything. So like you're literally in your own space. And to explore this is it's like almost like a gentler time to try and explore it. Even if it's like you don't have to tell anybody. You know what I mean? Like you're
Right.
in isolation. You don't have to tell anybody anything, you know? It's your own
Mm-hmm.
thing. Which is like from the way that I did it to like now, I mean, it's a really good opportunity. That's all I'll say. Really.
Well, it does feel like all of the like social pressures to like keep up or like, I don't know, all the ways that we used to distract is like literally all stripped back. And so
Yep.
what we're left with is ourselves. Like,
Hmm.
what does it mean with to have the fancy bags and purses and cars if like you're home alone with yourself, you know, or chasing like approval from people? It's like it's just you and you. So
Yeah,
yeah,
or like in the same respect, like it's just you and you with your hangovers now. So like, is it worth it to stay in that energy when nobody's there to like hold your hair back? Nobody's there to tell you that, you know, they're not they you can't be physically close to people to like cradle you through a hangover. And I know how intense my hangovers used to be. So like it's
yeah,
almost like causing more chaos in your life, but through I mean there's so much growth that can happen too.
yeah. So, all in all, I
Yeah.
think you get the message that there's an opening here, and we're
Yeah.
here to virtually hold your hand through another option. We're not here to do the work for you necessarily, but we are here to just be like two faces in the world that know about this other way, this other
Hmm.
conversation. And we're going to use this time for Tasha to tell her journey, like her story about you know, where she was, what was the normal before, what created the shift for her, and then also what was embracing sober curiosity like for her personally.
Hmm.
And then at the end, we'd like to share just some tools that Tasha found helpful just to kind of start to kickstart other methods of support that you might not have known were available to you. So that's our
Yeah.
intention for our conversation. Okay.
Yes.
Before we get started, it is absolutely important that we just share with you some trigger warnings. So this conversation is likely to include and will include part of Tasha's story is, you know, substance abuse, alcohol and drug abuse, addiction conversation from our lineage. You know, we're going to share a little bit about that. Also, mention of sexual assault,
Hmm.
and we will be using language because we're not going to filter anything today. We just really want to
I
shoot it
got a
to you
potty
straight.
mouth.
Yeah. She's like, it's going to
You
happen.
got to tell people.
Yeah. And also, excuse me, the mention of like drugging, like being drugged. So
Yeah.
we just want to just air that out. Just say like, this is what you can choose to take care of yourself and stay. You can choose to take care of yourself and peace out and listen at another time. We are going to
Hmm.
take steps to record this so that I can put it on my YouTube page. But in the meantime, just take care of yourself. That's the main
Yes.
intention behind this whole conversation. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So, Tasha,
There we go. Yes.
again, thank you. Again, thank you for sharing
You're so
your
welcome. Thank you for
story.
having me. This feels, I love it.
First of many to come.
Yeah.
Okay. So, give us a little background. What was happening for you before sober curiosity entered into your life as even a concept? What
Oof,
was going on?
girl. Let me tell you. I, okay, so when Okay, so sexual assault happened for me when I was 15 and a half. That was my first experience with sex. So that was jarring in general. I mean, it's jarring topic in general. But that was like my baseline for connection was this assault that happened. And so really looking back to, I think what I did is I was a whole ball of just coping and just trying to figure it out, listening to my intuition, which thank goodness for that. Like I really do feel like I'm in the place that I am because of my intuition, because there were little pricks here and there of like, well, how about we try it this way, you know? But yeah, so that happened. And then I basically, I mean, I grew up like we were in a family that like family gatherings and people coming to the house was all alcohol, like was the connecting force for everybody. Like people came, they had a drink, and then they started talking, you know, and then so I
Yeah.
just, that's all I knew was alcohol. And so I was prescribed Adderall when I was um, 20, when I was 20 years old. And Adderall for me, I was prescribed it for my ADD, not realizing that for me, ADD was coming from the food that I was eating. And that I didn't learn until like quite recent in like
Last
my
year.
whole story. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
fully, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so I thought that, you know, basically I went through life thinking that like I'm, you know, the black sheep. Like I have all the mental illness. I have, you know, I was on antidepressants for most of my young adult life, most of my teenage life because of the assault, which was never something that I could talk about. So that was the root cause of that. And then I was just putting stuff on top of it, not telling people the full truth because I didn't really trust a lot of people. And then yeah, so I was taking Adderall for 10 years and it got out of hand, really. I was with, you know, surrounded by bartenders because I was bartending for I mean I bartended for 9 years since I was 21 years old. So it was that world of like you drink on your shift, you get off, you know, hang out with your coworkers, you're drinking, you're drinking, you're drinking. So the way that I started abusing Adderall was that, you know, I wouldn't eat things that were great for me during the day, but I would just like eat because I was going drinking and like, oh, well, that's what we do. We like, you know, bulk up and then go out.
Make sure
Or
something's in your stomach kind of
yeah,
thing.
literally
Yeah.
only eating to like make sure something was in my stomach.
So you
And
don't get
so
sick and hungover, right?
exactly,
Yeah.
which later in my 20s was when hangovers really started to change the game. But so I would go out, I would get really shit faced, and I can't even count how many times I've been blacked out in my life. Like there was a lot. There was a whole lot of drinking. Um, and it was just so normal. Like everyone around me was drinking, you know, family parties and like then like social gatherings with friends. Like it wasn't, there was no scenario that I could see that there was no drinking. So I was around that for most of my life. And then I think like we were talking about this earlier about like rock bottom. I don't think like, I think I had multiple rock bottoms. I think I had multiple moments of being not my best. Hallelujah, praise the Lord that I'm still here. You know what I mean? Like I was not my best. I was a form of myself. And I think like there were multiple times where like I'm like, oh, I'm never drinking again. Like this is very common from what I understand of like sober curiosity is like that feeling of like something, you know, we can like something has to change, but then it's like alcohol is like the last thing that you can think of to like change in your
To try
life.
and change. Yeah.
Exactly. So, where was I before that? We were going somewhere with that.
Um,
I lost my train of thought completely. Okay, well, whew. It was yeah.
um,
Oh, so shit. Like the biggest moment of like hitting rock bottom, but like hitting multiple rock bottoms,
rolling out.
and then there's this really intense thing that happens. I'm just gonna laugh my way through it, because
Whatever
life, you
works.
know. Um,
Yeah.
so then this was, I mean, this was last June. that this happened. So like my sober curiosity has only been 10 months. It feels like decades of time, like the most magical decades of time. But it
Yeah,
has only been
crammed into
10
10
months.
months. Yeah, it's
Holy
just
shit.
amazing. And
It's
I've seen that.
nuts.
I've watched you live that. It's amazing.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think that it was just so many layers. Like once I stopped the main thing that was causing me pain, it was like I chose to not live in suffering anymore. I
Which
was just
was what? Which was what?
the event or
Well, you said once you decided.
oh, so I mean, the big deciding factor was that I was out celebrating Pride with a friend of mine, um, and I was drugged, and that was the second time. Kind of skipped over. Um, I was assaulted for a second time in my later 20s. And it was by a former boss of mine. It was very traumatic. There was a court case, so I was going through that, but still drinking really heavily. So like, and I just want to put this out there too, that like healing in general is not linear. So like if my story like doesn't make sense to you, it is because it doesn't. It doesn't really
Hmm.
make sense to me either. Sometimes I'm like, what is time?
Hmm.
So I ended up being drugged, and I mean, you were with me at the hospital the entire next day. Was that the next day? Yeah, the entire
Hmm.
next day.
Hmm.
Um, this woman, I just remember this woman helped me out in the apartment complex that I ended up in. And she was like my angel. And I got a hold of you, I got a hold of my partner. Like, the frenetic energy that I was feeling, I was like, this is bizarre. I literally had no clue where I was. It was terrifying. So that moment, that moment changed the course of my life for sure. I spent the next day in the hospital, shame spiraling. Like it was like a shame shit storm, like really aggressive. I mean, purging all of my other trauma. I was like, it was just, I mean, I remember being with you and just like shaking in the hospital because it was like I had unleashed all of my feelings of not being safe in my entire life, and they just came to the surface. So that was, I mean, my sobering moment. I mean, that was when I was like, holy shit, my life has got to change. And a little bit before then, I think it was October of that year. So I had been off of Adderall for 8 months before this. So I was still drinking like I was on Adderall, which was really awful. Anytime I would go out and stuff, it was just like I in my friends group, like it was normal for all of us to like not know what happened and to like piece the night together with each other.
And that was like the fun part of like
That was
looking back on the
fun.
night. Yeah.
Yeah, and the hangover, it united us because we were all in pain. So we would be in
So
pain and then
interesting.
go get brunch. And it was like a fun thing. And the waitress or, waiter would come over and be like, hi, what can I get you? And we'd all be like, oh my God, it's like just, I need a mimosa. It just never stopped. And that was so normal.
Hmm.
So, I mean, that's really like the gist of it. But I mean, that day after being drugged in the hospital, the whole hospital day, I think like you seeing me at my absolute worst, you being there with me while I purged all of the deepest, darkest parts of myself was I needed to be seen because I could not see myself. I
Mm.
couldn't see who I was. I was getting so lost in constantly just like pulling for more from myself, but like the main issues were here and like keeping me down. It was like I was being weighted down by my own choices and experience.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that being seen part is so, I mean, that's so challenging. I mean, I know in
Hmm.
my most vulnerable moments, it's like the last thing I want is for someone to see me, but it's actually the core thing I still want to, right? To
Yeah,
like be
exactly.
seen
Hmm.
and recognized in my pain because it's only then that it comes out into the light and it goes from shame in the dark corners of shame into the light. And then it's almost like when we can see it, we can actually do something with it. But to
Yeah.
see it, we have to get through that hurdle of like actually looking at ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
most of the drive. I'll speak from my experience. That's most of the drive to keep doing the destructive patterns, right? To not feel what it feels to look straight at your
It's fucking
shit, you know?
hard. It's
It's so
hard.
hard.
And
It's
that's like,
extremely
I
confronting.
mean, you think of these, you think of a kid with a monster in their closet or under their bed. I mean, I can just imagine like feeling so, so terrified and having the covers up. But when you just look under the bed and someone's there to like look with you, it's like, oh, it's not so bad, even though it
It
might
makes
be
you
so
brave.
painful. Yeah. And I
It makes
think
you brave.
like being in pain with you, I had asked for help. I mean, I don't know how many times I had done really destructive, stupid shit, but that was my way to ask for help because I was just harboring so many secrets within me that like I didn't know how to put a palpable like function on them. I was just
My job is to
there's
keep these secrets, like the, and then I'm gonna
exactly
do whatever I need to do. Yeah.
right. And like yes, I mean I invested in so much therapy and there was a lot of things that like really I mean it wasn't just like one moment where I like woke up in a hospital and I'm like, you know,
It
I'm
never is.
ready, change
It
me,
never
I'm here.
is.
Yeah.
Hmm. I
So
think those moments get like the PR of like, it's a one and done. What was your rock bottom? And then everything was better. It's like, no, that's the beginning of a whole other kind of journey.
yeah. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I was healing my trauma from my assaults for most of my adult life. But
Yeah.
I mean, just it got really heavy. It got really
Yeah.
heavy to hold, and I think that's why I really turned to alcohol. Um, and I mean, honestly, like I, I don't, I mean, anyone's, prescription choices is all them, whatever they want to do. I personally think that Adderall contributed greatly to my addiction, to my just turning off my intuition and turning off my brain because I would go into autopilot so quickly and turn
Hmm.
into this like version of myself that was like ragey and sassy, but like also controlling. And it was just not, I mean, it
Yeah.
makes me sad to like think of myself in that state truly because I'm
Hmm.
so far from it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels like in order for Adderall to work, and again, everybody has their own experience, and I personally have not taken it. So, but this is upon reflecting and like of what I've been hearing from you, it's like a body override
Hmm.
mechanism. And from my perspective as a guide and mentor, to women that also struggle with ADHD, there's so much more happening with that
Hmm.
dynamic. Like most of the time, the women that I serve that have ADHD are some of the most creative people on the planet that don't have clear pathways to send all that
Yeah.
frenetic energy down,
Yeah.
and that's just like
Yeah.
one take on it, but
And
there's so much more at play.
I mean, there's so much more. It wasn't, and I am grateful in myself of knowing that this, the out of control version of me was never fully me, which was such a blessing because once I started unraveling everything, it was like, oh, this has been me all along. I just had to fucking fight so many goddamn wars to get here,
Hmm.
and that was fucking brave. Ugh, brave.
Yes.
Dude. Like,
Brave.
holy shit.
I
Yeah.
would I would be hearting you if I was watching this. I'd be
Yeah,
like
yeah,
hearting you like psh, heart explosion.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it is, and that's why I keep thanking you for having this conversation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what I've heard is like life before was the result of a lot of things, but the
Hmm.
through line was the usage of alcohol to begin with, and then Adderall got added in, and then
Hmm.
it cranked up the alcohol usage even more that you didn't have a turn off button. You couldn't like feel your body enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some of those compounding effects that you're talking about was like, family relationship to alcohol and just being around it. We had like multiple sexual assaults, depression, anxiety,
Hmm.
and other, traumas in the mix. And that's a lot. Like that's a lot for one person to carry without any kind of like validation of their experience and without any mental, emotional support. And while you may have had that, like it was still a lot to deal with. And it just sounds like you did not know you were dealing with so much.
Yeah. I think like one of the most telling times in my life was that like I was really good at hiding stuff from our parents. Like I was really good at hiding my from our family in general. Like I could show up to things. I can't even tell you how many things I showed up to when I was super hungover. Like I could show up and I could function. I could be fine. Or I could joke about it and just be like, "Hi, I'm in my 20s," you know. But,
Right.
but there was a moment like in the kitchen of our parents' house where I couldn't hold it anymore. And after my second assault, like I cried on the floor of the kitchen. And, mom and dad like did such a great job of like trying to carry me, but I didn't know how to speak for myself. So I was like, it was almost like it was almost more jarring because I didn't know how to communicate. And so therefore there was like a lack of like a communication like
Barrier.
war happening. Yeah. And I
Mm-hmm.
just like so I ended up just like becoming a little bit of a recluse again, And that
Mm-hmm.
is in all of my younger relationships. Like I have been so good at self-sabotaging for most of my life because I'm just like all and this is not for me now. Thankfully, my current partner like really, really holds space, like, and I take up space, and it's beautiful. But there have been, times where I'm just like, you might want to just hit the road now because I'm a lot of work. And I think
Mm-hmm.
like we've all been there, especially as
Yeah.
women. We've all been there.
Pushing away the thing that you want because like we don't feel worthy and all kinds of other buried reasons for
Yeah,
sure.
so much. Whew.
Yeah. So, okay. And then, I mean, I imagine in the hospital, and I've heard you just because like I was there with you holding your hand through all of this.
Hmm.
Like, I remember you saying how like that wake up call in being in the hospital and going through that, just like saying to yourself, like, there has to be another way.
Yeah, that
Like,
was
there
a
just has to be
deep,
another way.
that was like a really deep, like almost like God moment where I was on this one path, and this one path was like kept circling around and leading me to places that like were really painful. So I'm like, why do I keep choosing this? But it was also a part of like being on a racetrack and someone hasn't like turned to like so you can get off of that track and onto another one yet. It was like I kept circling and circling, but then I had this moment of being like, whoa, like there has to be more. It was almost like, here's my experience. And I was like looking outside of myself and just being like, there has to be another way. There has
Hmm.
to be more. Because the way that I was also seeing other people live, like I had a lot of friends that had, pretty professional jobs that were, partying with me and then like going to their job. And I'm like, okay, like it works for them. And then like my bartender friends, where everyone, we were all hungover all the time. So it was like working for us under, behind closed doors. But like, I was just like, there has to be another way. And I realized like, I mean, and I definitely did not do this in the most graceful way, but like I had to exit a lot of my friendships because I personally kept circling and that was not the path that I was meant to be on. I knew it. And I was just like, what is happening? Give
When
me like something else.
when you say circling, I'm imagining like a loop. Like you're just like looping. Like this happens, then this happens, and this happens, and
Yep,
this happens, and so and
exactly.
then start again. Da da da
Mm-hmm.
da 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 da, and start again. And it
Yeah.
sounds like the friend group that you had around you was not supporting any other way. So I imagine like when you made a decision to change your lifestyle, like that just needed to happen,
Mm-hmm.
right?
It had to, like, I was too attached and too much in my own people pleasing to do it any gentler than I did it.
Yeah,
I was in a place where I was like, I just don't think we are on the same page. And it was very painful,
yeah,
very
it's super
painful.
sad. I
Yeah,
imagine, a lot of grief around that.
so much grief. Um, but at the same time, like I can still like have a super heartful, like energetic, sending them love now
Yeah.
that serves me in way better ways than actually being physically friends with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. So we're kind of like bridging into the healing. So the shift was like, there has to be another way that day in the
Hmm.
hospital, right? And
Hmm.
luckily there was like a defining moment because like it's not so clean cut for so many people, which is
Yeah,
weird to say
definitely.
luckily for such a horrible thing to happen.
But
But it was a
honestly,
definitive thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was, I
Yeah.
mean, the weirdest way to do it and like the most, like the hardest way, not hardest, but hardest for me.
For you. Yeah. Hmm.
That, I mean, I think everything happens for an opportunity for growth. I don't think everything happens for a reason anymore. Like, I'm not like in that space, but I do think that everything happens for growth. Like, you can keep going on the same path or you can choose something different. And that's kind of where I ended up. Yeah.
Yeah. So the name of this conversation is sober curiosity. That's
Hmm.
actually a phrase from a book that came
Yes.
across your path. So, right. So it's called Sober Curious. Sober Curious.
Yes.
Ruby Warrington. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So, how did this book come in? Oh, well, I remember
Yeah.
because you reminded me.
Yeah.
But like, how did this book come into your life?
Yeah. My amazing sister.
Which I genuinely, guys, we were talking about this before. I'm like, how did the book come into your life? She's like, you sent it to
Ooh.
me. I'm like, what?
It was like
I
I had
forgot.
come across it and then you sent it to me and I was like, oh, like I was literally about to get that. And then, but like you sending it to me was like the definitive, like, there's another way. There's
Yeah.
another way.
That's how the universe talks to us. It's like, over here, buy that book. That's your
Yeah.
next step.
Holy shit. It was like, it slapped me right in the face. Like if there was a way, like I opened it and it was like, knocked me out, like the words I was reading, I was like, first of all, like the blissful sleep, I was like, meh. Like I'm never gonna sleep because Adderall, I did not sleep, right? So like
Yeah.
greater focus, I'm like, okay. Limitless presence, I'm like, okay, I'm hearing what you're putting, yeah. And deep connection awaiting us all on the other side of alcohol. I was like, duh. It was like, it was literally like, wait a second, wait a second. So then reading this book, it's an opportunity to be friends with shame for a while.
Interesting.
And I mean that because I could not grasp having a good relationship with alcohol. That was just not in the cards for
Yeah.
me. My best friend knows it best. Like when I would like be hungover, I would be like, I'm an alcoholic. I'm in I have a lot of alcoholism in my family. I'm an alcoholic. I should go to AA meetings right now. I gotta go. And she would be like, okay. Like she even saw it from me. Like, I don't know if that's actually the case. Cause like I wasn't at a point where I needed drinking. It was just always a thing I did. So, which sounds a little whatever. We're going with
Yeah, but I
it.
feel I feel like if somebody is watching this in a similar dynamic that doesn't necessarily fully identify with
Yeah.
full on like gas pedal down all the time alcoholic or addict, that's the point of this conversation is there's so much room in the middle for an authentic expression of
Yeah.
like wellness for
Mm-hmm.
you.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, oh, does that make, but like, I would encourage, like, don't overthink it because like somebody else relating, you're going to be speaking their language. Like, that's how I feel.
Yeah.
But what I haven't had any options.
And that's how I felt is like that's the reason why I'm having this conversation is because I did not know. Like I just did not know that there was another
I
way.
didn't,
And it
I
doesn't
didn't
make it
know.
right or wrong, good or bad. It just literally is information. So
Right.
when I started reading this book, everything that Ruby was saying, I mean, I was like looking through this book like, okay, the hangover thing, like I get that. Like, people get hangovers, but then like there's like these questions of like, would my life be better without alcohol? I'm like, oh, I've thought that before. And like, I mean, this option of like, maybe we're all a little bit addicted. And I'm like, okay, so it was like these baby steps to understanding my own journey because I mean, I remember you actually, this was a whole long time ago when I had visited, and I can't remember like the circumstance, but I had visited an Al Anon meeting and there was someone or you shared something about like there was a person that could not do hard liquor because like they would just go and keep going with hard liquor. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm that person. Maybe I just take out hard liquor. But it didn't matter like what it was, I was still numbing with it. So when this book came along, it stopped me in my tracks and I was like, I was relating with every single word that she was saying in different ways of like I have felt that way. Wow, like just all of this information flooding in. So then what I did with that is I went completely sober for about 6 months. And that was what I needed to do personally because there was no, it was like a faucet, like the faucet was blocked. And with alcohol, like I would turn on the faucet and it would just like fucking burst out and it'd be nuts. But
Mm-hmm.
like when I chose to be sober for 6 months, I was able to like be in control of the faucet. I was able to be in control of like what choices that I wanted to make. And let me tell you, like the first 6 months of my like sobriety was really hard and confusing. I went through a lot of shame. Like I had to go through a lot of shame of like, you know, why can people around me drink and I just like can't handle it? Can I just like not handle it? Maybe I am an alcoholic. Maybe, you know, and for the first, I don't even remember how long, maybe for like the first 2 weeks of going sober, all I thought was alcohol because it was something that I was limiting myself to. So like I wasn't able to have it. So I was constantly thinking about it, which I
Mm-hmm.
think is like pretty normal for like, you know, if you're taking out sugar out of your diet, you're going to think about sugar for a while and then you'll like finally adjust. But
Right.
everything, it felt so jarring because I was like, maybe I'm just doing it wrong. Maybe I am actually an alcoholic. Like, what is going on? But then after like that 6 month mark, I started to experiment a little bit. And I just realized like now I am at, and I am happy to say this out loud, I have a very healthy relationship with alcohol now. Very, very healthy. Where I am making conscious choices. If it's taking energy from me, I just don't have it and it's fine. You know, but like the ways that like it really helped me when I started my journey was to go sober for 6 months and my partner participated with me just out of will for you know support, which was incredible. It was
Yeah. That's
so
a really
helpful.
amazing gift. Like,
Yeah,
and I remember, I mean, he chose that for himself. Like, it was already on
yeah.
his radar to experiment with himself.
Hmm.
But I think, you know, I remember making diet changes and my partner would do it with me. I was like, oh my God, this is so much easier
It's so great.
than
Yeah,
having
it's so
somebody cook
helpful.
something that you want to, you know, like same.
Yeah.
So that was cool. That was a blessing for sure.
Yeah, it was, I mean, it was very, very helpful. And just not having alcohol in the house for those first few months of my purely sober relationship, um, it was very helpful. Like just out of sight, out of mind. Like I was
Yeah,
like, I can't, if it's in the house, I'm going to think about it. You know, it's just like
totally.
snacks. Like if they're in the house, like I'm going to freaking eat them, you know?
Yeah, because hi, human, and
Yeah, right?
like that's
Yeah.
part of what we like to do.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally.
So it sounds like, I mean, you got this book on your radar. These ideas in this book were just like so groundbreaking for you. And
Hmm.
then working with your partner to like create an environment that was conducive for those 6 months of sobriety.
Yeah.
And then like I'm curious, like how did it shift after those 6 months of sobriety? Like what did it, because I like, would you call yourself sober? Like, do you identify with that?
No. I
Yeah.
don't, because it's just like a contributing factor to like an old shame shitstorm. Like for me, that label really blocks me into something that, like, if I want to explore something, it doesn't allow me to, because my shame and my guilt will kick in and just like demolish the experience. So I wouldn't call myself sober. Sober curious to me feels light, it feels fun, it feels in control, it feels curious, which feels playful, you know?
Hmm.
And that's how I really think of my relationship with alcohol, is like I am fully in control of my experience. And if I take a sip of something and it's a no within my body, if it's a no beforehand, it's a no. Like I go weeks on end without drinking because it's just like, it's just a no. And I can be around people drinking, it's totally fine. Like, but I personally, I don't want to, you know. But if I have a sip of something and it's an okay, we're like, okay, body, let's go. Let's have this little like boozy bevy, you know. But like if it's a if it's a no, then you know she speaks. She is in control. Like my body knows me best. So what an honor to be able to honor her in a way that I am able to be like, I got you. Like you're in control. I got you. You know.
It's beautiful. And that I know just from knowing you that that relationship to your body did not exist before sober curiosity. Like there was a huge healing that happened alongside taking Adderall and alcohol out. Can you tell us more about like what that journey was like, food and
Yeah.
body?
I think like for a long time I was just curious. I've always been really curious about my brain and my body. I've always been very curious about it. And I've always known that I was an empath and that I had like badass intuition, but it scared the shit out of me. So, numbing and coping mechanisms, hello, they're great for that. If you don't want to feel, you just like have some more wine, have some more shots, and you're good to go, you know? But like it was when I started long ago, when I would have these hangovers, I would eat like pizza or some shit food in the morning, like brunch and eggs and bacon and all these things. And I would feel awful, like even worse. And I would end up like just having a terrible experience inside and outside of my body of my hangover. And it would physically manifest itself. This started about 26 is when this started happening. And so then I took gluten out of my diet, which helped me immensely. Um, but then it wasn't only gluten, it was like, it was grains and stuff. And you can't be like a party girl. You can't be a party animal, have shitty foods, have hangovers, and then expect to not feel like dog shit. Like, you just can't. So when I started feeling like major dog shit, I was like, man, like, must be food. So as soon as I started becoming aware outside of myself of like, maybe I like plants and I don't like to eat animals. Oh, interesting. I do feel better when I eat plants. Maybe like, you know, there was just like so many different shifts that started happening when I started going to a naturopath and started like getting on like supplements and herbs and exploring like my body didn't like beans all of a sudden. I was like, God damn it, that sucks, but also okay. I'm gonna do like I'll follow it. So once I started
Yeah.
following that and stuff, it also makes you extremely sensitive once you start taking things out of your diet.
Yeah.
So like
And
you
adding things
become
back in.
and adding things back in.
Excuse
Confirmation.
me.
Bless the Lord, my soul. The soul. Oh my
Woo!
soul. Wow, that was like I was
Out
like
of
at the high
nowhere. I don't think
school.
I've ever sneezed on an interview. Anyway, go on.
Of course, of course. But yeah, once you start taking I just have to like let's
You're
honor
all
that
good.
sneeze because she needed some space. She needed some gotta space. Let her take her time.
It's like I'm coming through, bitches. Move it. I
Move
could not
that.
hold it. Anyway.
Oh my God. Oh Lord have mercy.
Ooh.
So yeah, like I started like taking things out of my diet and introducing them back in. I'm just gonna keep going. Like this.
dipping into? The point of no return.
Talk about the faucet. Woo,
Oh
Lord.
my God. Diet changes.
Diet changes. Diet. Yeah, so I started reintroducing food. And not only did it make me super sensitive to the foods that I was like reintroducing to my body and very much more violently ill if like gluten were to get in my diet,
Listen, I
but
understand. Yeah,
woo, um,
it's intense.
but it also like I don't think I could have handled drinking. Like as it
Right.
started, because I was so sensitive to everything that like once I started doing that and then like bringing alcohol back into my life and like little like whatever I wanted to do, I would have a sip of wine and be like, I am wasted. How did I ever drink so much in my life, you know?
Hmm.
And it was like immediate headache. So I had to really balance myself because it's
Yeah.
not all overnight. This journey is messy
Oh,
as fuck. It is
yes.
messy.
Hmm.
God, glory be. I don't know what's all these like really
All
like
these
getting
like
in there.
church phrases.
I know. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's messy.
Like leaving room for the messy because, when your like body chemistry is changing because of what you're feeding it, and then your
Mm-hmm.
mindset is changing, and then your emotional chemistry is changing. And then, it's like when you then add alcohol back in, and that's the power of elimination diet. I've done
Yeah. Yeah.
many of them experimenting what the heck
Mm-hmm.
is going on with my body. But like adding it back in, there's a whole other calibration of how learning how your body actually metabolizes these substances. So when you say it's messy as fuck, like that's so real. Like
Mm-hmm.
assimilating food and drink, assimilating your relationship to your emotions and like your life purpose. Like
Oh
when
my
all
God.
of this gets moved out, so much, and that's what I've noticed so much in you the past 10 months is like this blossoming from your core. And it's like in the blossoming, like the magnolia tree is blossoming outside right now, and I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like watching these like petals like burst through their buds. And like, but it's also like a very destructive process too. Like the
Yeah.
process of creation and renewal and transformation is a very ecstatic, messy, it's like you got to burn shit down in order for new things to be birthed. And
Mm-hmm.
so if there's anyone painting pictures about like sobriety being like roses and sunshine, like I think that's just really out of touch and
Mm-hmm.
not grounded in like real life. And so I appreciate you sharing like it's not all linear, and it's showing up in
It's
this
not.
conversation. It's like friends and food and alcohol and relationship and body and
Mm-mm.
jobs and money and relationship to self and trusting yourself. It's like,
Oh my God, such a good point. Like money, especially because I made money so quickly bartending. The
yeah,
faster it came in, the faster it went out. And like, so the faster it came in, the faster we were like, to our other bartender friends when we go to
drinks
the
for everyone.
bars. And then
Hmm.
yeah, there was a whole lot. And like, even that, like, I worked at a place for, I mean, 10 summers. It was my summer job. It was adult like camp, but that's where I had to like break the bone and just sever it because that was where I could not thrive on this journey. And
Yeah.
it's no like it was like so sad because that was like my home for so long. So
Hmm.
many people there supported me and loved me deeply, and I loved them deeply. And at the same
Yeah.
time, like we just could not be in the same life together right now anymore.
I
Yeah.
think a lot of people that might be curious about making changes like this and feel like a deep craving and knowing inside of them that they need to or want to. I mean, so many times it comes down to those kind of dynamics. Like, what about my social friends? Like, like, am I
Mm,
going to be alone in my house?
mm-hmm.
Like, not drink, like, what am I going to do? Like, there's just so much lifestyle impacts. So I want to say, like, I empathize with that choice and how much courage it takes to make those calls and then deal with the emotional fallout because of it.
Mm,
But I will say, in this sober, curious journey for you and allowing that, identity or like lifestyle or mindset shift in, like really letting it
Mhm.
in to the core of you as an experiment, I've watched so much richness
Mm.
walk into your life in the form of
Mm.
like true soul friends. You could have like the
Mm.
deepest soulful conversations about literally anything under the sun
Yes.
with. And I've seen your relationship to your partner blossom. You have a beautiful
Yeah.
home together and a little cute little puppy, like a boo
Yeah.
boo, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm watching you like make calls about your career, like making career shifts from a place of like authentic desire for your life. Like, what is the long game of my life? Why am I here? What gifts do I have to give?
Yeah.
And then make courageous decisions to shift out of that, and then watch a global pandemic happen right on the heels of that.
Okay,
It's,
right.
I'm
Talk
just
about messy.
so crazy. Like, and that's the hesitation in making decisions like that, is because you don't, you're walking into pure uncertainty.
I think, and that is, thank you so much for that feedback because it's really, it's such a beautiful thing to like really honor myself with and to also honor anyone that is like wants to be on this journey. I know personally what it feels like to be so anxious and to be like so deeply in my bones, sick, anxious because I was going to lose so much. I was going to bring on my own pain. I knew it. I felt it. It felt so necessary, and I knew that I couldn't ignore it. But at the same time, the pain that I was bringing myself to open and blossom open like that was I would never do that again. Like in that state, like in not that I would never do it again. I would never wish that pain on myself ever again. Because
Mm-hmm.
now I'm fully in alignment. So like things are not like I have moments of being like, God, that's really uncomfortable and I'm still getting there. But at the same time, like, I mean, Glennon Doyle does it best. And I've been listening to her book and one of her mantras is we can do hard things.
Mm-hmm. That's the
We can
Untamed
do,
book, right?
yes, that is
Untamed.
untamed. We can do hard things and just really sitting in that because the pain sucks when it's happening. It blows. It is the worst. But at the same time, would you rather be stuck in that cycle for so long and know that there's more and never chance it or step outside of it? And I'm on the other side, which is brilliant. It is the way that this life has orchestrated for me. I'm in such gratitude and awe every single day, truly.
It's almost like and you didn't notice this, you didn't know that this would be coming your way by making the choice. And we never freaking do. That's part of stepping into
No,
the
of
uncertainty.
course,
We
of
never
course.
freaking know the magic on the
Hmm.
other side. But it really is like you let the magic into your life. It's like your life wasn't just this like loop anymore. It opened, and like all the support, all of
Hmm.
this magic, all these opportunities like are coming in because you're so available for them, because your
Yeah.
primary focus is just like taking care of you,
And just
no
and
matter.
being and supporting my circle supports me so well and it's like being there and supporting them too is the most nourishing part. Like I thought that I knew what friendship was. I knew I did. Like it was a beautiful time. It was, there were a lot of really incredible moments. I'm not saying that my life was all of a shit show, but like I was a functioning shit show within it. But there were still so many beautiful memories, and those are the things that I keep really close to me of like thinking really fondly of the people that I have, cut myself off from because I know that it doesn't make sense to anyone but me, but that is the most important thing is it makes sense to me now. It didn't. I'm
Nope.
constantly like, let's just swim nude in uncertainty, just take me, here we go, like
Cozy up to it.
freaking water park of uncertainty, but like
Yeah.
every time I hit the water and I'm smooth sailing, I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
It
Okay.
was worth it
What's next?
almost.
Yeah. And like being present in those moments
Yeah.
instead of constantly looking to outside fulfillment. That's what I mean. This whole sober curiosity, if there's one through, like full through line, it is what I just said and I can't remember.
Oh shit, now it's gone too. That doesn't usually happen to me. I can usually track all of them.
That's amazing. It
Saw a
is.
lake. Guys, help us out in the comments.
There was a water park
Yeah,
analogy.
there's
You're
through
just like
line.
waiting in the water, like,
The gifts on the other side.
yeah, well,
Being present. Was it being present?
oh, being present with myself.
Oh,
Being
we
present
found
in
it.
uncertainty. Yeah, that was full
Yeah.
circle. Being present in uncertainty. That is it. Like being present with, I mean, and this pandemic situation has been a whole new wave for me of releasing my identities fully too. So,
I heard that.
ooh, but
Yeah,
like
that's real for a lot of people. Hmm.
really, and the grief, I think for the first time in my life, I really felt the grief of the life that I had before and that
Yeah,
I wasn't choosing anymore, which was
yeah,
like it was so deeply sad. And on the other side of it, I'm now able to see like I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful for everything that has led me to where I am in like,
yeah,
so many different ways. But like
yeah.
the presence that I allow myself to have with myself every day is
It's
incredible.
beautiful. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's amazing. I mean, it's just been amazing as your like big sister, to like see you step into such radical responsibility for your life
Mm-hmm.
and step into the unknown in a way that makes you available for your full potential. I'm seeing you like ask hard questions of yourself and like going in and I just have the most respect for that because that's where the real transformation happens. And it's, something to be shared as well as like, you've shared a lot about like the darker, harder parts about like your 20s and stuff. But from the
Mm-hmm.
outside looking in, like you were like a big player in Cleveland theater. You were in school, you were working, hustling. Like from
Mm-hmm.
the outside looking in, it's not like you were a bad person by like I didn't even know the intensity that you were experiencing on this
Yeah.
front, and I'm your sister.
Mm-hmm.
It's only actually now that we're having more of these conversations together where I'm like really getting an insight into like how much was happening. Part of that was like I was not living in Cleveland and like,
Right.
we didn't party together. I think we went
Right.
out a handful of times, but like we had
Yeah.
a 5-year difference between us. So like I was in a different kind of phase of life than you. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that contributes to it, but it's just it's healing to hear that now that you've chosen this new path and I share that because like for anyone loving somebody in your position, like I didn't know the full extent of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to make myself wrong for that. It happened the way that it was meant to.
Yeah.
But to see your transformation now is just really remarkable. And I'm just so grateful that you're sharing it now.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah.
And I think too, there's an element like I wouldn't have believed it either. Like when I was really in it and going out a lot and like drinking a lot, like that was normal. So it's not like it would have been any different if you would have been like, hey, like I'm concerned about you.
Right.
Because
And
I would
I
have been like, what do you
remember
mean?
it's not like I was immune to that normalcy either. My 20s were freaking nuts. Like
Yeah.
you and I were just talking this morning of like, God, we have been so protected
Yeah.
and looked out for in our lives. Like the shit that I was up to too in my 20s, like it was just, and it still is freaking really normal to
Hmm.
get shit faced for fun and do that with your friends and be hungover together and laugh about it. Like there's a
And
part
it
of me that's
doesn't make
still
it
really
like, go ahead.
there's a part of me that still really likes like the excitement of going out and
Yeah.
like partying with friends and stuff. But the difference that I'm seeing in you and having you articulate is like it went from unconscious, like this is just the way it is, to conscious choice. Like I'm in
Mm-hmm.
my power
Mm-hmm.
choosing these things in my life. And there's just
Yeah.
such a different vibe. It metabolizes in the body differently. Your life feels different when you come from that like empowerment within you.
Yeah.
That
That's